There is a battle being waged right now, but not the kind of battle that you would think. Hi, my name is Robert. I want to welcome you to another edition of Living by Fire. We're going to be looking at the kind of battle, the war that's being waged. And we're going to be looking at what God expects and what Satan is trying to do and how you can fight back. Let's open our Bibles to Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2, and we're going to be looking at what God expects of us and what Satan's trying to do, and what God says this is what you need to do in order to be obedient to and fight the battle against what's going on in the world. Romans chapter 12, verse 1 says this. The Apostle Paul says, I appeal to you, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. God is telling through the Apostle Paul to believers that we're to present our bodies as a living sacrifice. When we think of sacrifice, what do we think? We think animal sacrifices and rituals and the shedding of blood and just offerings. And all through history, we know that there are many, many cultures that practice this. But a living sacrifice, what God is saying to you and to me, is we are to fully and wholly surrender to Him, and this is an act of spiritual worship. But there's another side of the coin, isn't there? Verse 2, the Apostle Paul writes, do not be conformed to this world. What do you think it means to be conformed to this world? Well, let's look at the world and what's going on around us. We are a sex-obsessed nation. You can't turn the television on or YouTube or anything else without seeing something. We are so obsessed with it. We can't get away from it through our phones, through our tablets. We can't get away from it with even books in classrooms. Is it really okay to expose children at such a young age to adult content? It's disgusting. This is even the tip of the iceberg. This is the things of the world that Satan wants you to conform to. And God says, do not be conformed to this world, because there is nothing in this world that Satan can offer that is going to be good for you. There is nothing that this world that Satan has encouraged to be built up and to be out in the open that can offer you nowhere compared to what God offers. Do not be conformed to this world. And why? Because it plagues your mind. We've got to be careful of the things that we listen to. We've got to be careful about the movies we watch, about the video games we play, or the books that we read. We've got to be careful of what the people, what they're saying that goes on around us. And why? Because these things go into our mind, and then our mind begins to process it. And then eventually what happens is all that stuff starts to drown out the voice of God within ourselves. And then we lose desire to follow God. This is the kind of battle that's being waged right now. There's a war going on, and the prize is your soul. And the battle is going on all around us. And the question we have to ask ourselves is, if it is so prevalent like this, how can we fight against it? Look at Romans chapter 12 and the end of verse 2. Romans chapter 12, let's look at verse 2. But, here's the but. Remember, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. How do we renew our minds? We have to choose what we allow ourselves to be exposed to. We have to choose, through the grace of God, what we allow ourselves and our families be exposed to. This is how we begin to renew our minds. We have got to be careful of what we put into our minds. We've got to be careful with what we allow into our homes. And the easiest way that our kids get exposed to it is right here. It's these handheld devices. These handheld devices are a window, an avenue for the sinful things of this world to be coming into your homes and entering into the minds of your children. If Satan can't get a hold of you, he's going to get a hold of your children. Believe it. It's going to happen. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Why? So that by testing, this is again renewing your mind. you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. God wants us to fully surrender ourselves to Him. And the question I want to ask you is, how in the world can we know God's will if we're filling our minds full of junk? How can you be obedient to God when you're filling your minds with garbage? This is why. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I want to leave us with this. What are you putting into your mind lately? What are you exposing your mind to? What are you exposing your kids to? The world wants you to think that it is innocent and it's fun and there's no harm in it. But my friends, there is nothing Satan will do in order to capture your mind and the minds of your children so that you can't be focused on God and focused on the things of this world. And you'll walk through one day with blinders on your eyes, and then you won't be able to know what's going on, and by then it'll be too late. What are you putting in your mind? Satan wants your soul, and he will do nothing to stop it. And what God says is, come to me, all you who are weary, and I will give you rest, the kind of spiritual rest. And we don't even have to fight this battle anymore because God's already won the victory for us. What are you exposing yourself and your kids to in your homes? And whatever it is it worthy of God? Is it an act of worship? I want to say take care, God bless, and good night.